Hey everybody, and our next two lessons will be over graphing parabolas. We're going to use the new format for the parabolas, the two equations that you saw in the past. Now today we're just talking about vertical parabolas, and in our next video we will be talking about horizontal parabolas. Alright, so let's take a refresher look at this picture. Remember, we have axis of symmetry, this purple curve is our parabola, and then the minimum is our vertex. If the parabola had opened down, it would have been our maximum. Now remember, the letters we use for vertex are H, K. So axis of symmetry will be a line x equals h, this yellow line right here. So those two items aren't really new. We discussed that in our quadratic unit, in our previous unit, Unit 5. Now, the only thing that's really new here is the focus and the directrix. Remember that the distance from the focus to the vertex is going to be called P, and the vertex to the directrix is the same distance, P. So to get from the vertex to the focus will still have the same x value, h, but this time we will take k and add p to it. So the point for the focus is h, k plus p. Now the directrix is going in the opposite direction, so we are actually going to subtract. So to find the equation of the line, remember the directrix is a line and not really a point, we're going to say y equals k minus p. So because the y value is k, and then I subtracted p to get my directrix, y equals k minus p. So what we're looking at here is a graphic organizer of everything that I've just said. Here's the formula for vertical parabolas. We need to find the vertex, which is a point, the axis of symmetry, which is a line, the focus, which is a point, and the directrix, which is a line. Okay? When I say line, I need to have either x equals or y equals as part of your answer. So some of you put on the previous test 5, and I gave you credit for that. What I was really looking for was like x equals 5. 5 is a point, x equals 5 is a line. That's going to be crucial here. All right, now the direction, if p is positive, it opens up, and if p is negative, it opens downward. So we're going to do some practice problems involving the equation and just being able to determine these particular characteristics of the quadratic. All right, so here's the things that we need to find. How does it open? What's the vertex? What's p? What's the axis of symmetry, focus, and directrix? Now, what I like to do is sometimes I like to change this into the vertex form. We're used to having y by itself. So if we did, that would be y equals a negative 1/2 x minus 8 squared plus 4. Okay? So this is back in vertex form, h, k. Remember that the sign in the parentheses is opposite, so it's 8, 4 for my vertex. I also see that the number out front of the parentheses, my a, or my 1/4p, is negative, so this one will actually open down. Now, the next thing we need to do is find p, because remember that the focus and directrix rely on p. So negative 1/2 is going to be equal to 1/4p. And you're wondering, where did I get this from? So let's go back and look at the equation. The number in front of the parentheses is 1/4p. So negative 1/2 is 1/4p. So what we're going to do is we're going to solve for p. With two fractions like this, I'm going to cross multiply. Negative 1 times 4p is negative 4p. 2 times 1 is 2. So to get p by itself, I would divide by negative 4 and simplify. P is negative 1/2. So my p value is negative 1/2. Now, remember, the axis of symmetry is just x equals h. If our h is 8, then this is x equals 8. Not 8, x equals 8. That's very important. All right, so I'm going to move the information for how we solve for p over to the side here. And now let's talk about the focus. Remember that the focus, you're going to add p to the y value of your vertex in order to go up to the focus. So it's going to be, h comma k plus p. We know h is 8, we know k is 4, and we know p is -1/2. So the 8 will stay the same, and 4 plus a -1/2 will be 7/2. And let's leave that in fraction form. 3.5 is fine, but I prefer things in the fraction form. So this is the work right here for how to find the focus. Now the directrix goes the other way. It is k minus p. So we remember that the directrix is a line and not a point, so it's going to be y equals k minus p. So y will equal k, which is 4, right? Because we got h and k. Oops, that's not k. That's h, and that's k. There we go. So k is 4, and then we're going to subtract a p from it. So subtract a -1/2. So 4 minus a 1/2 is really 4 plus a half, or 9/2. Now 4.5 would work, but let's keep things in the fraction for now. So the directrix is the equation y equals 9/2. So we did all of this information without having to graph it. However, sometimes it's nice to be able to look at a picture and say, okay, I need to add p for the focus, subtract p for the directrix. Everything else is exactly like what we did in Unit 5. All right, so let's try another example. I want you to pause and give this a shot, and then we're going to go over it together. All right, so we're going to look at the number in front of the parentheses to determine if it opens up or down. Because this is positive, it will open up. Okay? If you want, put the vertex, put it in vertex form, and you'll see that the vertex here is -3, -5. Remember that the h, the sign for the h, is the opposite. All right, now before we do p, let's talk about axis of symmetry. Remember, axis of symmetry is just x equals h. Our h is -3, so the answer for axis of symmetry is x equals -3. All right, so let's do the math for the p. Remember, the number in front of the parentheses is equal to 1/4p, because that is the equation of the vertical parabola. Now I'm going to put this over 1 so we can cross multiply like we did in the previous problem. So 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 4p is 8p. So by dividing by 8, I get that 1/8 is p, 1/8. Alright, so I'm going to take that information and slide it over here to the side for the time being, because the focus is going to be h comma k plus p. So we know that h is -3, k is -5, and p is 1/8. So -3 cannot be simplified, so it's just -3. We didn't add or subtract anything to it. -5 plus 1/8 is -39/8. Okay, all I did, you could just type this in your calculator if you're not good with adding fractions, but -5 plus 1/8 should give you -39/8. Now the directrix is going to be y equals k minus p. So what we have here is y equals k is -5 minus p 1/8. So -5 minus 1/8 is -41/8. Make sure you put y equals. The directrix is a line and not a point. So it's very important to remember what's a line, what's a point, because then your answer will look differently for each type. Alright, so we are continuing with the same type of problem, but this time I'm also adding the words then graph. Now remember, when you type things in the table of your calculator, it needs to be y equals. So to get y by itself, you would subtract by 1 and put it in the vertex form. So 1/12 x minus 3 squared minus 1. When you create your table for this, you would type in 1/2 x minus 3 squared minus 1. Now remember, you always want to start at your vertex, start your table at your vertex. So the vertex is 3, -1. Remember h, k from the vertex form of a parabola. Now because the 1/12, the number out front of the parentheses, is positive, it should open up. And the axis of symmetry is just x equals h. And since h is 3, it's x equals 3. So we already have some good information started. Let's go ahead and create a table of values in order to graph our parabola. Alright, now you'll notice here that my x values, I started at 3, but when I went up to 2 and 1 in the table, I noticed that I started getting decimals. So what I did was I only put the nice whole pretty numbers because those are the ones that are easy to graph. So negative 9, 11, negative 3, 2, 3, negative 1, 9, 2, and 15, 11. So that is our parabola. So now it's our job to find P, the focus and directrix, because we will have to plot the focus and the directrix as well. Okay? So the P value, let's see, 1/12 is equal to 1 over 4P. Cross multiply, 12 equals 4P. Divide by 4, P equals 3. Alright, so now let's find the focus. Remember, the focus is h, comma, k plus p. So h is 3, k is negative 1, so negative 1 plus 3 is 2. That's my focus. And the directrix is going to be y equals k minus p. So y equals negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. So we can actually plot the focus and the directrix. 3, 2 is my focus. So there's our focus, and our directrix is the line y equals negative 4. So we've done exactly the same information, but this time just graphed it as well. Alright, now that we're comfortable with finding the information, I want to talk about a couple different special cases. Okay, this problem right here, if I want to write it in the parabola form for the vertical parabolas, this would be y plus 0 equals negative 1/3 x plus 0 squared, and then that is the formula. So our h and k are going to be 0, 0, that's your vertex. Negative 1/3, because it's negative, tells me to open down, and then I can continue to solve the way I usually did. So notice that this problem here, it doesn't look like we have an h and k, but we do, and it's actually at the origin 0, 0. So for these special cases, you might have to throw in a plus 0 to help you see where your h and k are. Now in this particular problem, it's out of order. We don't have a number in front of the x plus 1 squared. We don't have a number in front of our parentheses in order to find p. You'll also notice that a number is being multiplied to y. So what you're going to do is, in order to get that negative 4 off the y, you're going to divide both sides by negative 4. So what actually happens, I'm going to delete this here, is that this becomes a y minus 3. The negative 4 is being divided here and here. Okay, remember that this is basically the same thing as multiplying the entire thing by negative 1/4. You'd have to distribute to both terms. So we get y minus 3 and then x plus 1 squared over negative 1/4. Well, I don't really want it as negative 1/4 here, so what we'll do is the same thing, multiply by negative 1/4 instead of dividing by negative 4. So negative 1/4 x plus 1 squared. Now we can switch the location so it looks more like our formula. So now you can see that our vertex is going to be negative 1, 3. It will open down because we have a negative 1/4. Okay, you can keep going with the information now that this has been put in the correct form. So it won't always be in the correct form, but you need to know how to move things around and put it in the correct form so you can find your h, your k, and your p very easily. Alright, well that's it for vertical parabolas. Our next video will be over horizontal parabolas. I'll see you guys later.